Welcome back to the Brian T. Grand Finale, and this next guest needs no introduction, and the final broadcast would not be complete without including our next guest, who has been a part of my other series, Brian T. World, and also the Brian T. Hour. He's been a part of my productions over the past several years. He is a political activist, and he's also the creator of the Keystone Alliance Gay Life newsletter. Please welcome none other than the one, the only, our recurring guest who has often hijacked my series many times, John DeBartola. Welcome, John.
Thank you for having me.
I couldn't possibly have this finale without you. And I wanted to, of course, have one final sit-down interview to give you the opportunity to share your final thoughts, just talk about what's on your mind as we say our final goodbyes.
I've had so many teachers in the 22 years I've been an activist. People that put me on my way, people that taught me, some hurt me, some helped me. To each and every one of you, you know who you are. I want to thank you. And as this is my last and final broadcast, I want to give a very special thank you to my family, particularly my grandmother, Grace. She died 5 years ago this October. My grandmother was my best friend, my rock, my best teacher. She was the very best of me. Nana, this is for you. I know you're upstairs watching. I have been involved in politics for a long time. Those of you who watch this show know I am all over the place. I'm running for Johnstown City Council this year. By the time this episode airs, maybe I won, maybe I didn't. I am taking my district attorney in Cambria County to court on contempt of court hearing this Monday, which is April 1st, April Fool's Day. I am waiting for the State Ethics Commission investigation results on the Johnstown-Cambria County War Memorial and on the Greater Johnstown School District. I can tell you all, they call me the voice. Having been a mute for 7 years, you can see the bulge. I thank Dr. Clark Rosen at UPMC Voice Center for restoring my voice over 20 years ago. It has been a labor of love for me to be an activist, to speak from my heart, and to speak truthfully to you every week in your home. This has been such a joy. It is bittersweet for me to leave today because you've welcomed us into your homes, into your hearts, and Brian, I couldn't have done this without you.
And I am just so honored to have an activist like John being a part of my show. And I appreciate that you were such a great sport to come on the show, be silly, outrageous, but also to inform others, because that's another important part of what this show has been. We really have been informing others about the community and just educating as well as entertaining. At least I hope that we have done both. What do you think?
We have. The Keystone Alliance Gay Life newsletter celebrates its 20th anniversary this September, Brian. As you know, you're part of the newsletter. The protests, the benefits, the charity work, the cleanups. We have a monthly newsletter that is kind of dwindling down, I'll be honest. I compare a lot of what I've done to vaudeville back in the early turn of last century. The shows have been dying off. The community is changing now that we have more legislation. We still have a need for hate crimes and non-discrimination protections. There comes a time when I encourage each and every one of you to stand up. Like I said, you're a teacher, I'm a teacher. We have to continue to teach and educate. That's the final lesson, I hope, if you watch this show. And by the way, for those of you who are watching who live in Johnstown and the surrounding areas, I'm not going anywhere.
He's not.
I've filed multiple lawsuits in the last 5 years. I've won most of them. I intend to continue being an activist, whether I'm elected or not. I am going to continue to hold government accountable if and for itself, demand transparency, demand honesty and sincerity in government, and I intend to do it with a flair. So when you see me at these meetings, and I go to almost all of them, I'm going to be the crazy guy in the back who's going to say to you, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And when you don't do it correctly, I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to smile and I'm going to laugh as I do it.
Well, I got a question. What do you say to those who say you're too politically extreme, that you're an extremist?
I've been accused of being a troublemaker before, and I can tell you something, I'm only trouble to the people who are trying to hide, lie, cheat, and steal. Those that have secrets they don't want exposed. In a true democracy, which we're supposed to have a country based on freedom, You should welcome criticism, you should welcome conversation, you should welcome debate. I don't really view myself as an extremist. I view myself as someone willing to stand up, whether I do it in court, remember, I'm not an attorney, I'm just a normal person fighting for the rights that every single person was granted in our Constitution. That's who I am, that's who I will always be. I'm 42 years old, Pittsburgh. I've been doing this for 22 years, and I expect to be doing this for another 22 years. So I encourage you to keep following me.
And so when you think about the future, it sounds like you have politics on the near future. When this comes out, you will.
By the time this comes out,
you'll be in the process.
Well, by the time this comes out, the primary will be over. The election is already. If I win the primary in Johnstown, I'll be a Democratic candidate for Johnstown City Council. That will be a first because I'm openly gay. I know, shock. It's time we embrace, in my community, it's time we embrace change. We have two ruling factions. I talk about this in the newspaper, two families that control all of our government funding. Until we get rid of the special interests, and I don't just mean in Johnstown, I mean everywhere. Pennsylvania, the United States, our country is controlled by people who use the tax dollars for their own good.
How do you feel that your involvement with the LGBT community over the years, in particular your association with drag, for example, the drag community, being a show director, will impact your political future in any way?
Honestly, it already has, Brian. When I originally entered local politics 5 years ago, they called me a stripper on the evening news. They claimed I was giving alcohol to children. They protested my events. They did me the greatest blessing they ever could. Because they protested me as an individual, I was able to attract Mark Siegel of the Philadelphia Gay News as my keynote speaker for our gay prom that year. It was a national media spotlight. It was breathtaking. For all others who question our lifestyle, I just recently was on the news. The Methodist Church in Johnstown refused to let me in the doors to even talk to me. I can tell you, being an activist is about opening eyes, awareness, and truth. That has always been my goal. When the newspaper interviewed me and said, "Are you going to win this election?" I said, "I have no money to spend on it. I'm an average citizen. My goal is to bring up issues. If I win, so be it. My goal is to educate, enlighten, and I want to see true change." That is the goal of every activist. If I can actually change the way the world works, and I believe I have. In Johnstown, a lot of people resigned over my protesting. I'm waiting on the Ethics Commission investigations. I hope they don't let me down. If the Ethics Commission does not have charges on the Greater Johnstown School District and the War Memorial, the story is going to be how the state has spent 5 years investigating and they failed the people. So that's an ongoing story you should follow. It won't be on this network. I have been busy with lawsuits. I recently won all my drug forfeiture lawsuits. It set a state precedent. The Office of Open Records, their rulings were reaffirmed. I am still battling in Cambria County to find out how these funds are spent. I care about blight, I care about infrastructure, I care about job creation. I have many issues near and dear to my heart that don't involve GLBT politics, but that is my cornerstone, that is my base. I believe in equality for all.
How will you handle if, like, any of the previous scandals that you may have been involved with, like these drag shows, people pulling knives or whatever, over the years, the outrageousness, the absurd scandals, how will you react to someone trying to dig that up and try to use it against you in some way?
They already have. I always laughed. I find a humor that in our political world, people, I've been a political newcomer for way longer. If you run for office, expect to be trashed. You have to have a thick skin and you have to laugh at everything. Because remember, when you enter the public sphere, you're going to be trashed by everybody. If you don't have a sense of humor, if you cannot laugh at yourself, stay home, watch Netflix, eat popcorn.
And a lot of people out there may not know that we've had, each of us, a very similar respective journey, in the sense that you started the newsletter around the same time that I started as a producer here, producing my very first series. And I know that I joked that I was going to stay on the air forever until there was an end to LGBT harassment and bullying in public schools. And of course, that was meant as a joke because, unfortunately, there's never going to be an end to bullying. And that's something that even after this show ends, after my final broadcast here today, I'm going to continue to be promoting awareness of what is called the Trevor Project. They are a life-saving, vital organization that has been doing tremendous work in terms of helping LGBTQ youth in crisis, ages 18 to 24. And you can go to their website, thetrevorproject.org, to get all the information about the work that they do. And so I am still going to be involved and doing everything I can to help those who need it. And it is available 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You can also call the number on the screen. And it's just really been, for me, the reason that I stayed on the air longer than I originally planned to, because I was going to go off the air actually in 2011.
That's when you met me.
But then I met
jumped
John.
in 12 seasons ago. Now life has been breathed
And
into
everything
the show.
changed, yes. He made me realize, and this is what I want to say about political activism. I always was somebody who couldn't stand politics. I did not want that to be something that I had as part of the show in any way. But I realized in 2011 that I really wanted to do something as far as LGBTQ youth and what I was seeing with the suicides that were going on. I wanted to do something, and it just so happened that I met John at about that time, and so he really inspired me to keep going and to stay on the air longer. And we've talked about how much everything has changed and how we now have social media, YouTube, and Instagram.
When the Gay Life newsletter started, we had a website, which we still have. It doesn't have the traffic it used to, because back in that day there was no MySpace, there was no Facebook. We had 200 columnists. People wanted to get their voices out. Social media has changed the way we view the world. The bars used to be the place to go to. It no longer is the case. A lot of the bars in Pittsburgh have shut down. The community has grown and changed in its own way. We used to host gay proms. We did benefits. We did HIV, animals, cancer. I did the first 10 years of Gay Pride for Johnstown and Altoona at a time when we had to have police protection. We had Reverend Dahl in Altoona protesting us, Reverend McCrae in Johnstown. I recently had a hate crimes bill passed for the city of Johnstown 2 years ago. They protested us then. I failed to get the non-discrimination bill passed because the people there are still very backwards. The legislature would not pass the bill. So the thing is, there is work to be done, and activism is the way to do it. Brian, I can't tell you the number of protests I've hosted in the last 22 years, the amount of charity work we've done, the amount of money we raised. The newsletter has been a blessing, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And people should know how much John has done, and that's why I wanted to do this final interview. I wanted to get the opportunity to give credit where credit is due. And just so everybody knows, the 2013 Miss Public Access TV pageant was possible thanks to John. He really did find the contestants and the judges, and of course earned us the title.
The best of the worst.
Do you want to fill people in
Well,
on the article just to give a
I owe a very good thank you to the
Recall,
Pittsburgh
yeah.
City paper. They did this National Enquirer-esque trash piece on me. One of my former queens was jealous. She was friends with the reporter who no longer works there. I believe the editor has changed over as well. They trashed me, and it was a blessing. If you're watching this Pittsburgh City paper, thank you. Trash sells. You had to print a retraction 2 months later. I had a letter to the editor about it. You printed the Queen's quotes without actually having the research done. As Trump would say, it was fake news, and it benefited me, and it was a blessing.
Well, I thought it would be fun for this final interview with you to read some viewer feedback, and I picked the best of the best as far as the positive.
The hundreds of people who
and
email
the
us
best
every
of-
week.
and the best of the worst,
Let's
as
see
in
it.
the not so positive, and it was really tough. Let me tell you, to pick the one that I thought was the best and the most positive, and the one that was not so positive. And so I'm gonna
do the negative first.
Okay, I'm gonna do I will do the negative first, and I will respond to it, and then I'll give you an opportunity to respond. So this, I will not name names. I will protect the innocent. I will the guilty. However you want to look at it.
Oh, I know who that is. I will use his name.
He already knows who it is.
Oh, yeah.
No, don't mention any names. Okay, so So this is a viewer that had some comments to make, and it was originally after the Miss Public Access TV pageant had aired. And so this viewer stated, "What a colossal waste of time. Have you seen the drag queens in southwestern Pennsylvania? Jesus God. Have you read the Gay Life newsletter? Have you seen the public access show? It must be a slow news week if you have the time to report on this nonsense. This newsletter is a clusterfuck. Anyone with a pulse is allowed to have a rant published, causing its leadership to look both idiotic and drama-seeking. The TV show is comical and painful all at the same time. I can't believe anyone in capital letters is so desperate for attention that they would lend themselves to that nightmare. And it's supposed to be about elevating themselves and the actual drag queens. Holy shit, they look like rejects of the Animal Planet Network." See, the best of the worst. Don't they have any true friends that would be honest enough to tell them how hideous they look?
No, we don't.
I would never, in capital letters, let a friend of mine go out in public like that, much less perform in front of an audience. Are the standards still that low in southwestern Pennsylvania? The gay community would be better served in the following ways. Number one, stop associating yourselves with drag queens, especially ugly ones with no talent. Number two, if you're going to publish a newsletter or produce a television show, for the love of God, use your position of leadership to bring the community together. Don't use these public forums to disrespect each other. Number three, if you are a bar owner, TV producer, DJ, bartender, advocate, or even an ugly drag queen, you, my friend, are a community leader and should conduct yourself in a manner that would make us all proud. There is nothing worse than a bartender that can't keep a secret, or a DJ with a bad attitude, or a mouthy drag queen that should spend more time on her makeup and less time dissing their brethren. Okay, so I'm gonna give you my response to this.
2 minutes left.
First of all, I wanna say, I have never done anything on my show to divide the community or use it as a means to humiliate or denigrate anyone. This is about bringing people together. And I've done everything I can over the years to include everyone within the community, within the LGBT community. And I wish I could have included more of the L, the B, and the T, but I did make a sincere effort. And I can honestly say that over the many years that I've been on the air, I have welcomed and encouraged others in the community to come on down to this station and become a community TV producer and produce other shows. And it's unfortunate, but that didn't happen. And this is it. I mean, there isn't going to ever be another show like this.
I'll give my 10-second rant. The joke is the Keystone Alliance Gay Life newsletter was the only organization of its kind 20 years ago in this area. We are still the only gay advocacy group in like a 200-mile radius between Pittsburgh and Harrisburg. I'm located in Johnstown. We've done our best. We've actually brought more people together. We have about 5,000 members. The fact that we even have this forum and that we're actually being what Tim called advocates for change. Tim, I know him. He was the former owner of Lucille's. He's a good book writer. I actually thought he was my friend. He probably still is. I haven't seen him in years. Best of luck.
Okay, so now on to the positive.
You have like a minute left, so space it out.
We have more than that, but
do we know?
so this person, again, I'm not going to mention any names, but I do appreciate the comments, both positive and not positive. And this person said, "Why slander those who are trying to uplift the gay community here and maybe having a very hard time doing it? It sounds like to me this man in question is being criticized for his efforts in trying to produce a professional atmosphere in the drag queen show productions. It is sorrowful that people do not respect the contract that is given them when being a contestant in any of these shows. If one cannot or does not like the rules of that particular venue, then they shouldn't be a part of it. It seems this man does not get taken seriously and people don't follow through on their commitments in the contractual obligation he has made with them. I am sorry that this is being put to print to the community, but maybe it is good for some to see how much this man and group in question are really trying to do for their community. Trying to establish a professional and legitimate organization with boundaries to keep people safe and protected. This sounds reasonable to me. I hope that people will come together and try to complain less and respect more. And I just want to say, I really appreciate this. And I also want to add that to those who may feel, oh, this is not serious enough television. It was meant to be late night ridiculous television. And I'm sorry that there are people that were disappointed. I tried to include as many different people to be a part of it. Over the years, I welcomed and provided them a platform, a place to be themselves, to have the opportunity to express themselves. And I'm very happy and proud that I was able to do that for 22 years. I did not intend to be on the air for more than 1 year. That is the truth. Originally, my cast and I just wanted to get us through the first season in one piece. And if I was able to do that, I felt like it would have been an accomplishment. Because back then, this was still in the 90s, this was before Will and Grace, RuPaul. It was a very different time. And we were shooting scenes in broad daylight around the city in drag. I mean, it was amazing. And at the same time, we were able to do that and still remain on the air. And here I am 22 years later. It really has been amazing.
And I'll respond. The person who wrote this was defending me. When I started doing my pageants, I believed that our performers, because I was an activist, should have clean criminal records. A lot of the drag queens objected. They actually trashed me in this Pittsburgh City paper article because many of them had drug convictions. They had questionable, like Kinney was stealing credit cards from people, that was a fraud. I wanted them to be open, honest representatives of the community, not frauds, not criminals. They took severe offense to that. And they criticized me. They said they shouldn't have to have criminal background checks to be a performer in an organization that works with children. I defended that stance 10 years ago. I defend it now. And the fact that people were so heated about this and found such controversy that I required my performers to openly disclose if they had a criminal background is shocking to me even 10 years later. It was a controversy. The newspaper covered it. You would think in this day and age of what we've seen with child abuse, criminal backgrounds, people would demand their performers, the people that they hold up on a pedestal, had a clean criminal background and were high moral character. The fact that the community is so jaded that the people who are entertaining them in bars are not always the most savory of people, and if they criticize me over this ruling I did, it amazes me even today. This is what we're talking about. So I hope that explains it.
Well, I also wanted to get your final thoughts on how, of course, this really is the end. It's bittersweet. We have used that expression because never say never, but as far as there being another LGBTQ themed late night local TV show, I don't see it happening. And I just want to say that I really do want to thank everyone that was a part of this. There were so many people over the years, they wanted to be a part of it. I was happy to provide this space and just to give them a chance to express who they are. And I really hope in the future that someone will come along, maybe a younger producer, to produce an LGBTQ themed local late night TV show. But I have to say, John, and I wanted to get your feelings on this, I think media has changed tremendously, and I don't know what the future holds for public access television. Now that we have YouTube, and we really are moving to also internet-based television, and like we're already halfway there. I mean, we have Netflix, and I also just want to say, over the past several years, actually going back even further, like I was saying earlier, trying to encourage and influence maybe another producer to come down and enroll and become a TV producer, there was only one other person that I can think of, and that of course is David Stanton. And now he has moved on and he has his own internet-based TV station.
Wave of the future.
So I want to get your thoughts. The final word on this, where do you think media is headed?
I think when it comes to freedom of speech, there will always be a need for public access television. Because for one, how are we going to teach our young people, our children, about this field? You look at this studio, they have equipment. It's educational, they teach. Plus, if you don't have social media, how do you get the word on an actual TV network? There will always be a need for places like this. Hopefully the funding is available. But I do understand your point, Brian, because in a world of Facebook and MySpace and Twitter and everything else, we have become social media creatures. The key to remember is that in time, technology may change. We may not always be dependent on social media. I notice I post less and less. I used to post every day, now I'm posting every couple days. The world is changing, and I think in the next 10 or 20 years, we're going to see a resurgence of the actual print media as things go back to the way they once were. Because I think we want more reliable news. The president talks about fake news. He's not wrong. So my final thoughts are, I want to thank you all for 12 years of my involvement in Brian's 22. I've had so much fun and adventure from all the prides, the performances, the singing, the pageants, the shows, the guests, the celebrities. This has been a labor of love for me. I can only hope this network continues and other people can have the same opportunities I had. Being in a trash article in the Pittsburgh City paper, front page with a picture of me, was probably the highlight of my life. It has been 6 years, and people in Johnstown still trash me for that article. That's how successfully I was trashed, and I want to thank you for that. I will go to my grave and have in my obituary I was trashed, and I will say thank you for it, because without that article, I don't think I would have had the attention on this network.
And I just want to also add that with my final series, The Brian T. Hour, I wanted to feature, and the reason that I highlighted the work of those who are producing, either they're producing independently, media online, I wanted to include people independently producing media online, in particular LGBTQ themed media, to show how far we've come. And I think that that is something really significant. And it's just really been something to see that evolve and grow. And so that's why I do feel, in one sense, I hope that there will be another producer in the future to produce an LGBTQ themed show on the station. I really like when I see any type of different shows being produced, like whether they're shows about horror movies or music. If it's a show other than religion, nothing against religion, but I just like to see other different shows being produced, and it would be great to see someone to come along other than myself to produce an LGBTQ themed show. But I also just want to say that, and I can probably tell you, John and I are similar. I won't give away your age, but we're close to each other.
I'm 42, I don't deny it, I'm 42.
Did you live, well, you did live through the AIDS crisis, but I was a very small child. I do remember it vividly. Do you have memories of that, what that was like?
We did regular AIDS benefits. We had to do funeral benefits. The newsletter was very busy, and even though people don't talk about it anymore,
I just feel like I'm about to take out my cane here.
Well,
but you know what though? I just want to say that I get a little concerned because I feel like the LGBTQ youth, I just feel like maybe they don't appreciate the way it is now. And I mean, there's so much work left to do. We still have a long way to go, but compared to when I think about what I remember and the memories of that time and the years following that, and it just makes me realize that just to have the visibility now, to have something like RuPaul's Drag Race in the mainstream, Will and Grace, I mean, that just didn't exist before. And I never thought that something like that could. I mean, to be honest with you, I couldn't imagine that being on NBC or VH1 and being out there in the mainstream the way it is now. So what are your feelings about the kids today and the LGBTQ youth and just how everything has changed, and do you feel for the better?
The most important thing we can do as a community is to love one another. We fought so hard for the right to have gay marriage. I know many people watching this may be too young to realize the struggle we had. If you really want to honor yourself and honor your community, find someone to love, be happily married, live together, be good to one another, have loving friends, have a job, pay your bills, live like everybody else, and be happy. Yes, there's a lot of work that needs done. We have to continue advocating for hate crimes legislation and non-discrimination. It is still legal to fire someone based on who they love. That will come in time, but we must continue to persevere and not give up the fight.
And I just want to say that in the years that I've worked with you, John, you have never divided the community, as you've been accused of doing. He really hasn't. And the work that I've done with John, it's been an amazing collaboration. I have never had any feeling of division at all. It has been actually the opposite. I feel that we have unified a lot of people in the community through the shows that we've done and the work. And also I want to thank you, John, because you inspired me by example with your activism politically. Socially, I have been inspired to continue to be involved with the causes that I feel passionately about, with the Trevor Project, with Everytown, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know about Everytown, they are an organization working to reduce gun violence. And so thank you for that, because you have shown the way by example.
Speak up.
And you've done so much politically. And
not done yet.
And you're not done yet.
He's
running for City Council.
Johnstown City Council. One more time. Whether I win or lose, the fact that we have gay people willing to run for office, it's the visibility that's important. And when I run for office, I'm not a gay person running. I'm just a person running. That's what people have to understand. Until we drop the labels of seeing people in certain lights and certain looks, we're all people. That's the key.
And I know you're going to be involved in other projects. I'm going to be involved in other projects, so you definitely are going to be seeing us again in the future, even though it's not going to be here on this station. But again, thank you for watching, and we'll be right back.